do that just because it's like just in case there's a need for like a
Yeah,
little bit.
right.
One reason or
Uh,
another.
I am with you. Like I had that yesterday, day before yesterday.
I
Are we
just
live
got
right
home,
now?
by the way. Yeah, we're
Oh.
live.
Well, hello, live.
Just figure whatever. Let's just make it happen. All right. Make sure that the audio levels are good. Sorry, what were you saying yesterday?
Oh, so like I was having an issue. Like OBS completely crapped the bed on me, man. Like it wouldn't pick up the my audio source, and it looked like I was. Like it looked like I was talking, but then all of a sudden in the stream, everyone was like, "Yep, not hearing you," and I'm like, "Oh crap." I went through all the different things, and it was just I had to restart OBS, and then when I restarted OBS, it wouldn't pick up my video stream, and I was just like, "What the heck,
Yeah.
man?" The issues of going live, I guess, right?
That's why I'm trying to iron it all out before we do the live stream with Focal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which yeah, I guess if anybody's watching this, just so everybody knows, near the end of the month, near the end of July, around July 30th, I think actually on July 30th, we'll be doing a live stream with Focal. And
Fantastic.
that's something to look forward to. Definitely mark it down in your calendars. I think it's on a Thursday, actually. So we'll be talking to the product manager and a few other people there from Focal, so that should be exciting. But
That should be good.
that's kind of what we're doing right now is we're making sure that everything works and we have no issues with like technical issues. And the more of these we do, I think the more streamlined and easy it'll be.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I guess yeah, we're live and we can start talking about that lens you got.
Oh yeah, yeah. It looks like I'm a little bit louder than you in the stream too.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I'll just turn that down. I got you. I got the levels here.
cool beans. Yeah, I usually who's ever in the OBS is the one that should be, or who is, yeah. Because I ran into that issue too, where like the person like I don't know, like Dex. I think one time where we were having that issue where he was louder than me, and then we both ended up turning him down, and then it was like, yeah, bad news. Or yeah. So back to this. I got this in the mail recently, which is the macro Sony 90mm. So that's been fun. I've been having a lot of fun with that so far. I actually got some pretty cool Stellia pictures, but then this makes me realize how much micro dust is everywhere and what a pain in the butt it is to get.
Yeah. That's why like I do, as much as I would love to just be able to like shoot something and then like not have to worry too much about editing it, just like push it out there. It's like with macro shots, you need Lightroom, man.
Oh, yeah, man. It's like, and like I even dust like so I did a picture of the Stellia, and so and I was doing like kind of like macro shots of like the cup, right? So like.
Yeah.
Like that's just, it looks like there's nothing crazy on it, right? Like I even dusted it, I wiped it down, I did one of these little numbers and all that stuff, and then it was like I'm picking up all these little like imperfections in the actual like leather inside these little circles, and I was just like it looks like there's little black holes, and like it's like what, but if you look at it normal, it doesn't, you can't see it, and it's like. And then there's like all these tiny, tiny little, like I'm sure that this didn't help with the micro
He's
dust.
adding more micro dust. Getting rid of the smudges, but adding the dust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then you're in like Lightroom or like in the I use I'm like I have a really long chain for my photo stuff editing, which is kind of crazy. You'll appreciate this to some degree, I think. So I use DxO Photo Lab initially for all my initial import of raw files, and then I take all, and I don't really do much editing there. Mostly it's just for the color grading, because it does an automatic color grading that it really makes the pictures kind of pop a little bit better. Yeah. It just takes one extra little step out of the Lightroom process. By adding another process, probably fourth process. But the thing I really love about it though is it has this raw editing where I can actually go into the raw files and edit the raw files, and it has a really great like where I can remove the repair tool. The repair tool in the raw is really great. It's just a little easier to use. It doesn't have the clone factor. It's just easier to use. I guess I could use Photoshop, but it's similar to Photoshop, so it'd be. But I'm just not comfortable with Photoshop just yet. I know. So
that's like me neither. Like I end up having to use it for like thumbnails and stuff like that. But there's so much stuff with it that I just have no idea. I never really got into that stuff. I just preferred using Lightroom and being done with it. But there's so many tools out there for photography that like I'm realizing now, like the ones that cost a bit of money, but they're also really really good at like, say you miss focus a little bit. There are tools that'll like use like, I don't know if it's like machine learning or whatever, but they'll like bring the detail back.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, those ones are yeah. It's like it's crazy what technology can do with
Yeah.
those pieces. Oh, from Paris, hello.
Hello. Hey Paul, how's it going?
Paul, Marcello, Martin.
Yeah.
What's going on, Sheldon?
Sheldon. Yeah.
Howdy, fool. I'm gonna really butcher your name. Stefan.
Stefan.
Stefan. I'm horrible at name pronunciation, so that is not. Don't hold that against me, please.
Yeah.
Says Andrew could be a bit louder still. So
okay, yeah, I'll turn that up. I turned down my internal mic because I didn't want it to clip, so that's probably why. There we go. I'm turning it up in OBS. How's this?
Yeah.
Aria VC or HD 800s? It's okay. This is an interesting question. We were talking about this the other day. Hey, what's up, Weezy? We were talking about this when we were trying to do some BR in COD,
stuff, right?
And Chrono said that he preferred a tighter soundstage, and because that's what he was used to, I think. Because like people who use those, like, well, let's call them like lower end headsets. If you get used to the way that something sounds on those, I think it'll make a certain amount of sense that you would then prefer using something, fairly tight. But I tend to be on the other side of that. I think if you have something like an HD 800, you end up having, or like, yeah, even a VC or something with a wide and spacious presentation. I just think there are more intervals for depth. But I can understand the counter argument. I think it comes down to what you're used to. And as long as the imaging is good, as long as like, that's one of the things I like about the Bayer dynamics, as long as the imaging is like evenly, or just dynamics in general. I think dynamics are probably better than planars for imaging overall. Like there are some exceptions. I don't know. What's your take on that, Tyler?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I think it's what you acclimate to for sure. And like, I've had this closer sound stage ones, and you're kind of nailed it. As long as it has the really good imaging, you can do okay. But I actually do prefer having a little bit wider of a sound stage. With good imaging. So like the HD800s are fantastic. Actually, it's funny is like, and it's not really a well-loved headphone, but I still to this day regret selling my HD700s because those were just my all-time favorite like gaming headphones because they're super light. They were like really nice on the head. Yeah,
I've heard that in the past. Like I know there's you're not alone in that. I think there's a lot of people who like it specifically for that purpose.
Yeah, like movies, and I remember I really liked watching watching Netflix or watching movies, playing games. Music was okay. Like it definitely had its problems, but it wasn't like, like I wouldn't say it would be unpleasant, but it wasn't exactly my preferred music headphone.
Yeah. But fair enough.
Then back to the gaming piece though, I noticed while we were playing Warzone together, like I get this weird congested when there's too much noise thrown at me, like it just out the window. Like I can't even.
Well, because we were talking at the same time, and it was
explosions, and it's like
we're talking to everybody on Discord. It was impossible to try and like
like I'm sitting there like trying to like, okay, I hear somebody running, but then I'm listening to you and Chrono or Dex or like whoever was it, or Valentine was in there, and then it was like. And then as soon as it just becomes this wall of noise where I'm just like, I'm looking at things, let's shoot.
Well, see, I used to do this thing where I'd get into something like that, and then I'd put on some music, and it completely invalidates like any of the positional audio that you'd need. But just because I wanted to chill out, right? Yeah. And it does change the way that you approach it too, because now you just have to react based on what's in your visual field when you don't have the audio cues at all.
Yes, I actually do the same thing. Actually, a lot of times I'll be play. Yeah, it is hard, but as long as it's a game that doesn't really require too much sound, like I already play Halo, a lot of the Halo multiplayer stuff, like that, which does require sound. But like I was at that point in time in my gaming life, I wasn't as crusty and slow. I could throw on Spotify or throw on music and have that going, and you could just use Twitch capabilities, not the streaming service, but
no, I know what you mean. Twitch. Yeah, reactive,
to kind of be able to go around it. But now I'm getting old, slow, and need to use sneaky tactics, as I call it, or real world
to be
tactics.
Sneaky beaky, like as they say.
Yeah.
I guess we could get into some of the questions. I did want to get back to the photography thing at some point, but we should probably make this. Well, we should probably get back to that a little bit later because there's tons of good questions here. I don't want to miss these either.
Yeah.
Let's see. ZMF Atticus good for metal? Well, I know metal liked them.
Yeah. I mean, we'd have to ask metal personally. I mean, that's a personal question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably.
Yeah, I would.
From what I understand.
So here's a fun thing. Like I actually own 3 ZMS headphones. The Verite Close, Verite Opens, and the Aeolus. I've heard all of them, minus some of the T50 mods. In short,
like the Ori and
yeah, and they're all so fantastic. But like it's tough to like say, like someone always asks me like, oh, what about the Atticus or the Icon? And I'm always like, oh man, like I've only really heard it for a brief amount of time that I can't really give a good recommendation either way. But I mean, in all truth, man, I really don't think you can go overly wrong with any ZMF from my take, at least.
Yeah, I think you just have to know what type of sound signature it is that you're getting and the differences among them, right? Like there's a Tura and Icon are kind of similar, and then there's Atticus and Aeolus that are kind of from what I understand though, Aeolus is like the one that's like really good value. Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, go ahead.
And a really enjoyable sound signature, really pleasant, and not like as analytic or as, let's say, classically neutral as like the Otura and the Icon. And then the Verites, both Verites have that kind of warm tilt, but then they also have the like the slight dip there at around like 3.1 to 4 to 4K hertz. But the thing is, like I find that, you know, while I agree with you, I don't think you can really go wrong with any ZMF. I also think like the performance advantage for the Verites over the rest of the line is pretty noticeable.
Yes.
Where for me it's just like, yeah, I end up I gravitate to these every time.
Yes, I will. Yes, I agree with you there. Like I think that there's definitely like stages and up, and they're all like, you don't. I hate saying that so much, but it is really a thing. Like the Verites are definitely more capable of the lineup. They're definitely the top of the line of the ZMS. And then the Aeolus, I would say, is kind of like that happy medium of like it just does enough really well, and that it can fit almost any genre. It would be the easiest to recommend to most people. In fact, I say that all the time. Like it's what I would call most people's in game for some level. You know, as far as like
I'd love to measure that one on the Gross system just to see, because I have a general sense of that one because I did hear it at one of the meetups like last year, I think, and it sounded great to me. So now in my mind I'm like, okay, I wonder like how do I visually represent that sound signature, because I haven't actually seen what it looks like on the graph.
Yeah, you know, I don't think I've really paid attention to the graphs on that one either, to be honest. I mean, I'm not really a graph focuser, anyways. But like, yeah, I don't think I've actually ever seen the graph for the Aeolus either. Now that I think about it,
it brings up an interesting question that I've kind of been thinking about for a while. And back when we had that live stream with Kryn, I asked him, you know, what do you value more, or where's the sort of value cadence for tonality versus like frequency response and tonality, because he gives 2 scores. One is a tonality based score and the other one is a technical score. And you know, like I asked him where's the priority and where does it cut off, and I think he even puts this in a disclaimer for his list or for his ranking where where he even says like I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like a good technical score can bring up the overall score by like 1 grade, but there's a limit to how much it can do, or something like that. Like it can't take a C to an A, but it can maybe take it to a B, right? Something like that. And so there's a limit there, and he's got a little formula for how it gets calculated. And I was thinking about that because I was thinking about the reasons why, like for me, if I'm going to recommend something to somebody, and if I'm basing it off of like just the way that something sounds, like just, you know, put it on, okay, how does it sound, without you know, diving into like a super in-depth review or anything like that, then I think tonality really does matter more. But at the same time, because our brains are so good at normalizing this stuff, and because we're so it's so like, you don't have to listen very long for your brain to normalize the sound signature that a headphone has, and then the technical aspects become that much more important. That's at least that's been my take on this, and so it makes me think like, you know, I want to be a little bit more tolerant of deviations from, you know, whatever target curves that are out there. I want to be a little bit more like, the tolerances can be a little wider than I think, you know, those of us who are scrutinizing this can are, you know, we're allowing for, right? Because we do get used to it, right? Like it doesn't take very long for the sound signatures to be normalized, I think.
No, actually, that's actually pretty apt. I think that's a good way to put it, because I think I agree with you. I think the brain does normalize relatively quickly what you're listening to, and then with that being said, I agree. Like, I think you should have. That's why I think measurements are important. I always give crap to measurements and stuff, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, I do think it is important to have measurements so you can have that part of the pie.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, like then there's those other aspects, like you're saying, like the technicalities or these other pieces to that pie that really bring the whole picture together, or as much of that whole picture as possible for those listening, depending on their whatever. And yeah, I think that there is a little bit more wiggle room inside of that tonal balance versus technicalities, or
as long as there's not something like totally messing up, you
like,
know,
you know, those spikes anywhere.
Yeah. There's man, like, still to this day. Well, okay, it's not the worst headphone I've ever heard, but the Mastrop Zeus 14, man, I cannot get into that at all. Like, no matter how long I listen to it, no matter, you know, and it's a shame because there is good detail there, you know.
And you know, that's funny. It's like, that's kind of how I felt about.
Oh, we're getting some clipping from Tyler here. Let me just actually. I think I can do this. I can fix him. Oh, that would be why. I have you at 177%.
That's loud.
All right, let's try this again. Sorry, what were you saying?
No worries. Like, for like bad headphones for me, like it's funny because I think the most recent one in here is talking about the Fostex TH909s, or like but it was the 900s. I really can't get into those. Like, their bass is interesting, and I really like the bass on them, but the treble is just not my thing. Like, it's just so. And
you know, it's funny. I had that same reaction to the TRX00, and Anthony and I were talking about this in Discord the other day. I think he's actually changed the pads on his Ebony that kind of influences the treble a little bit to improve it a little bit. But for me, like, I had that same, like, oh man, I cannot, like, the treble. You can hear the limits in the treble. It gets to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And then I have the bemoaned purple hearts for those.
Bemoaned.
XO.
You had to have the purple hearts, of course.
I had to have purple hearts. I mean, come on. And I actually think of them as like a baby version of the 900s, to be honest, because like they have that such like, I mean, much, you know, lower technicalities of it, but like that V shape though is so intense for both of them, that I have a similar takeaway. So I have to, like, so certain genres I can listen with the purple hearts, and I actually have hybrid Deconi pads on them right now, which helped a lot with that.
I need to get more Deconi pads because they're doing interesting things for all kinds of headphones apparently. Like even the Bayer Dynamic stuff, they're doing releasing pads that fix peaks. Allegedly, I haven't tried them yet. That's what I hear.
I was way into the Deconi pads for the HD800. I even have the Elite hybrids for the HD800, and then I had the Elite hybrids for the HD700 too. So, and actually what I was using mostly with the HD700. And then I actually did the HD700s. Wow, I'm blanking on. We had the interview with him. He does the mods.
Ryan.
Ryan, thank you. Yeah. And he does the Soccer stuff. And so, yes. And so I did his mod for the HD700 with the felt pads inside the cups and stuff. And it was.
We should have him on again, man. I love talking to modders.
It's super interesting, right? Like, and it's fun too, because you kind of make the headphone your own that way to some level. And
what did his mod do for the 700s?
It definitely helped. It tamed a little bit of the wonky, like the treble issues that people were having. At least I mean, I was still pretty new to like kind of figuring out those pieces when I did it. So at that point in time, I was just like, everyone was like, "Oh, just do this mod and it makes it better." I'm like, "Okay," do the mod without really, fully appreciating what the mods were doing or paying attention to it. And at that point, I was mostly using headphones for gaming, anyways. but yeah, it helped with that. It did help with like a little bit of the peaks and stuff, and then the Elite hybrid pads from Tacony helped a lot too, because they helped bring
Right.
the headphones kind of came a little bit further off the head, so staging a little bit wider, and then it just wasn't so as in your ears, I guess.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting, and then, like I said, I wish I wouldn't have gotten rid of them now, but they're maybe one day I'll get another set, but it was fun. They're interesting, and I like that you can do that type of stuff to headphones. If you're willing to open them up.
But that's really the key is you have something that costs a lot of money. The last thing you really want to be doing is taking it apart and messing with it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the ZMF stuff, though, too, right? Like you can just put different pads on, and there's so many different options.
Heck, that's what I'm playing with right now. I got the new
pilot pads. Right. I watched your live, like putting the Copilot pad on literally everything. Putting it on the was it the Porta Pros that you put it on?
Yeah, I did put it on the Porta Pros eventually, and then I put it. Yeah, I was like, I'll just put it on everything and see what happens.
Start putting it on some IEMs or something. One for each side.
Or you have it be like the weird like a neck thing, like you have it where it's like a neck strap in the back ahead.
Yeah.
No, these are fantastic though. Actually, I think you're getting a set here soon to play with.
Oh, am I? Okay.
I think, right?
Yeah. I think you sent me. Something's on the way.
And like I'm telling you, like you're gonna get them out of the box, and you're gonna kind of, oh man, like I can just do this all day long. Like
I'm looking forward to it because I want to replace this thing. This.
Oh. Yes.
The lobe strap. Meant for Odysseys, not ZMFs, but it still works.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they're fantastic for that, to be honest. Like they're really, they're thin, they're light, and honestly, they're just super soft.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Wow, they really took off on the questions in the chat.
Yeah. Oh man. I saw one earlier about best headphones under $500.
Oh, best under 500.
We may have done this, but I think it's gotten more complicated since we've done it.
Yeah.
Because like pricing changes and stuff too for a lot of this stuff.
Used, do you count used in that market?
Yeah, right.
Do you count
under 500? I don't know if I'd count used. Like I think in the $1,000 to $2,000 price mark, you could probably talk about used a little bit more and get a lot more for your money. But
under 500, I almost would go with your, even though I haven't heard the new version. I would almost recommend, like based on yours, it'd be like the Sundara probably at this stage.
Yeah,
even with
Sundara LCD1. If you can actually, this is something that I keep forgetting about, but the HD660S is cheaper in Europe. So it's in North America it's like the price doesn't make sense. But in Europe, apparently,
I think I did see that.
Yeah,
it's like $400 or something.
Yeah,
like that,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, I could see somebody going for that over the Sundara if they prefer that sound signature. I like the Sundara better, but then again, I also have apparently the God Sundara. Like I have the
the best response.
Yeah, like it literally measures perfectly. I haven't measured anything yet that measures better than the Sundara. This one at least. So it's right behind me up there.
I've been thinking about this too. Actually, think about that comment alone, right? Like, it kind of I'm thinking of like video games too. Some of like the God roll, like.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Stuff. Like it's amazing to me. Like, what's your take on? Because I haven't really seen it too much with dynamic drivers, but with planars, I've seen it a lot. Like, there's is that something you've noticed? Like, I'm not. I have.
Oh, like for unit variation.
Yeah, like unit variation, and
Yeah.
I think it seems to be more of a. I think it's because just the nature of the way that planars are made, that there is that higher potential for medium to slight deviations that can cause whatever that causes. But
I've definitely noticed it more with planars. It does happen with dynamics as well, because I noticed it on some of the Focal headphones, but like minor, like the differences that were there were minor. But so for example on the Stellia, that was one where I noticed a bit more variation, like where the bass hump is. I noticed that there was because I tried two different units, and the bass hump was different on the other one on both of them, and one of them was like it was in a place where I thought it was way more appropriate. It might actually be that one. Did that get sent to you?
Yeah, this was I don't know, was this brand new? I can't remember if this is brand new or not.
Did it have a little tag on the side? Because I left the tag on.
It still has.
Oh
the
yeah.
tag.
Okay.
But,
that yeah.
but I'm not sure. Like, 'cause I think someone else got those ones. I think
Oh,
Taryn
okay, maybe.
mentioned that
Oh yeah, you're
someone
right.
else got those.
You're right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, even this one, like I noticed from this to the ones I've heard, even is mine
Yeah.
has my. I need to put some leather cleaner on mine. That's the thing I don't like about the focals, honestly.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Leather man.
tangent is like God they just soak up all your wonderful head juices.
That is a phrase that I never thought that I would hear. This could be on the brand new sentence subreddit.
Yeah, right. But yeah, like even the clears to the Elysia, I have the Elysia back here, and like it's just the way that
Yeah.
it's just it's and I even do the sealant and stuff, like
Oh yeah.
and it's still just I think it's just because it's such nice leather and soft,
Yeah.
it's just the nature of it. But
actually, apparently the Stelia does use one of the best quality leathers out there. But I remember also when I looked into this, like there's so many different companies marketing genuine leather, but that's apparently the lowest grade leather that you can possibly have. But it sounds good. Yeah. It's actually like a technical term for the grade of leather. So it's a clever marketing tactic. But
that's
not saying Focal doesn't use that. Focal uses like the much better quality leather. But that's what prompted me to like look into this and figure, okay, like what are the different grades of leather? Because I didn't even know that was a thing. But
yeah, well, it's funny. Another side tangent, but like leather is definitely an interesting bit, like because it also depends on where it comes from too, right? If it's protein, like fake leather, like or is it to lambskin? Like lambskin seems to be the most soft and supple, of course, but I mean you can get different ones depending how it's treated, that kind of stuff, how it's brought to that final stage. And then focals are. They also have the Alcantara stuff. That stuff is just as soon as it touches anything, it's a different color. So it's.
Was this the stuff that's on the clear?
Yeah, the clear. Yeah, and even I think the Elysia has a different version, but it's like a fake version.
Using it enough, so it hasn't actually discolored anything. But that's what I liked about the pro version of the clear is that it wasn't.
Oh no, I want the pros, man. The red, sexy.
Yeah, it looks awesome, and they give you, I think. With the pros in that SKU, you get an extra set of pads. I think
you do. You get 2 sets of red pads. Yeah, which is fantastic because those are expensive pads.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, getting back to the question about unit variation and planars and stuff, I've definitely noticed it more with planars, and I think that's just one of the things with planars. And specifically, I noticed it with Dan Clark Audio and and Odyssey. There's unit variation for those ones that didn't exist. That's the thing though. Like I think even with Hi-Fi Man there is unit variation, but I can't know that because I don't know if what I've gotten is because of unit variation or because of a revision, right? Like I don't know if that's like both the Aria here was different as well, but then it physically looks different. Like even just from the outside, like pictures of it with the mesh here and everything, the mesh looks different from the one that I'd reviewed in the past. So it's like I don't know if this like the difference in what I'm hearing is the result of unit variation or just revisions.
Which that's something I heard too about like some of the Dan Clark stuff too, or Mr. Speaker's Dan Clark. Is that he was pretty notorious for doing silent revisions, from my understanding.
I think
I know for sure, but like back in the day, like that, I don't know about now, but like I remember that was when I first was getting into the hobby. I remember that was one of the reasons why I stayed away from the Odyssey and his. Because everyone was like, "Oh, the unit seek silent revisions and all this and all the unit variation."
But the unit variation for those, I think a lot of that has to do with the pads, and with Odyssey as well. Because I asked Sankar about this, and he said that for their process for their drivers, it's not the drivers that have the variation. The tolerances are quite tight, but it's the pads that as soon as you're dealing with really large pads, there's so much more room for variation, the frequency response as a result.
Makes sense.
So, and also like everything from the material, because they do change the material on the pads for some of them, but then also like the thickness, and with some of the Dan Clark Audio, like the Aeons, the pad structure it's almost never uniform just because of the nature of the design of those pads. I think that accounts for a lot of the variation as well.
CMF pads are kind of similar in that sense, but even like I was gonna say that's why I actually brought these out, not because then I saw the coloration thing, but the pads, I think that would be a big deal too for these, because I mean, if you think about it, these are all like stitched together. They're all different pieces. It's not like you're getting the exact same piece of leather from the same. You know what I mean? It's like a tree. Like you're never gonna have the same cut exactly the same. Like so you're gonna have variations just naturally the way, even though you're doing the same style, the same process. It's gonna have.
Metal 571 says Resolve will be mad, but I would take the Aeon 2 closed over Allegia.
You would, Metal. You would.
But see, like the Allegia gives you the slam.
It's true.
Whereas the Aeon 2 doesn't. But the Aeon 2 does give you the detail and the planar separation. It's a tough choice for me, man. Like I think both of them I would EQ as well. So it's not like one has a tonality advantage unless you like the kind of sound signature that one or the other has, right?
Yeah, and the music, like Martin said, the music you like to listen to will factor into some of those headphones too. And
it's funny. Like I don't know what the answer is to that question, because like, so everything that's led up to my experience with this, it has indicated that if I'm listening to a certain type of music, again, maybe not like all recordings in that genre, but like, you know, I have a certain idea of how certain recordings are for different genres, and I'll be like, I'm in this kind of mood, I'm going to pick this headphone today to listen to these different recordings. And then that's different from, you know, maybe I had a bad day and I want to, you know,
maybe a little too much coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, and that seems to contradict everything that, like, you know, the engineers and manufacturers to, you know, the orthodoxy audio science stuff from, you know, like what Sean Olive is talking about. Like everybody seems to think, no, like you can't be changing based on genres. And I understand the logic there as well. It's just that like doesn't line up with the way that I, you know, have preferences.
And yeah, in fact, I think Ant even posted recently that post about the harming curve. It was a gentleman he was talking about. This is in the measurements thread.
Brent Butterworth.
Yeah, that way. Yeah. And it was a fantastic article, man. And the thing that I don't know if you read my comment. Hopefully it wasn't.
I did read your comment. Yes.
Meaty. Like I wasn't trying to like. Sometimes I think my snark or I think I'm being witty or funny or just like, or just me just talking. Sometimes the text comes off as me being kind of an ass sometimes, I think, which I hope isn't the case. But
well, if a person knows you, then they know it doesn't. But that's the same with the measurements, right? Right.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, so that was my take on it. Like, it seems like there's so much stuff that can go into that. Like, that's why it's so important to have like a set, like that's why Till was so important. And I think what you're trying to do with your new measurement rig and getting a standardized system in place, right? Where that's when you have a standardized system in place, you have a baseline, and with that baseline, you can have a better idea of what you're looking at and what you're doing. And then with the education piece too, like, are the people looking at these graphs even know what they're looking at half the time, or are they just going, "Oh, the squiggle is smooth, it's good."
And that's why, like, it's a challenge to try and like communicate this stuff, because you don't want to be like too focused on the measurements. You want to use the measurements to guide, you know. It's a visual representation. It's not the you know, be all end all. But on that subject of that article, there was a really good point that was made about making sure, and this is what Android's conclusion was as well. One of his 3 points is that you have to make sure you know what the measurement rig is and how this measurement rig represents the data, because they are all different and they all have different. Like I'm learning this, like even the standardized measurement stuff. Like for example, the Gross 43AG. It has, for a lot of headphones, it's got a bit of a dip there around like 8.5 to 9K. And you have to know that dip is supposed to be there. That dip is like, that's the way that this measurement rig handles that range for many headphones. Not all headphones, but many headphones where there's an interaction with the concha. Apparently, this is what Oratory's been telling me. And I asked him, you know, can't you just, you know, reflect that in the compensation that you have, right? Can't you just take the Harman hybrid that you've developed and then add that dip there around 9K hertz? And he said, well, not really, because that 9K dip shifts depending on the headphone and seating and placement. So you can't really say that that's gonna be the same across the board. And so knowing that about the 43AG and or whatever other quirks other measurement systems have, is fairly important. So that doesn't look it doesn't look stupid when you're like, okay, this has a crazy dip there, that doesn't seem right, but it's actually like, no, that should be there. And then also, like, for people who are trying to EQ. And I noticed this when I was trying to EQ as well, because I didn't know about that before, and I was trying to do my EQ, and I'm like, this doesn't sound right. I'm like fixing something that's supposed to be there. So
it's not really actually,
no,
just an artifact. Or
it's just it's not even. I don't even think it's an artifact. Like, I don't think it's like, because you know how the mini DSP ears rig had that like 4.5K hertz like issue, and it was just all over the place. With this one, I think it's like a specific interaction with a piece of the physical. I'll hold this up. With the physical shape here, like this piece here, and so this is what creates that null. I think,
which makes sense when you think about, like, in the sense, sense on the sense of the sense. Sorry, it makes sense when you're putting something that's interacting with another thing, right? And so that when those things collide, you're going to have certain factors come into that, right? So, like, for instance, the material of the ear, the material of the cup, or the coupler. Is that right? The coupler that the ear sits on. So, like, I mean, I'm sure that has to have some kind of effect. I think even, I'm not sure how accurate it was, but like DMS did that thing where he did the
right,
and like I think he actually measured and was able to determine, mine aren't as big as his, but like he determined that there was some interaction there that was causing something.
Yeah.
I don't know how scientific or accurate that was, but I mean, that's something to account for too. Or even like us having glasses. Like,
well, that's why I go with the thinnest possible arm so it doesn't mess with anything.
Yeah, these are not good. I don't wear these when I am actually listening to music.
If you want bass on a high-fem M planer, if you want bass, wear glasses with thick sides, because it like pushes it out a bit. Sorry, Metal says here, by the way, resolve IEC 711, the human... In IEC 711, the human simulation part of the spec ends at 8K. Everything beyond that may be totally off, even in professional rigs. This is important to understand. Yeah, completely. From my understanding, actually, I should take this apart so you can see
Tile. I understand how to say his name right. I always just say Till for some reason. That's a weird...
You're not the only one who says Till.
Yeah. Weird habit I have. I'm also horrible at pronouncing names, so I think it's just a thing. It's just my thing, I guess.
So this is the RA402, and this is the ear sim. Actually, hold on. This top piece is not part of it, but this is just part of the what allows you to attach the pinna. Because you can use this with an external sim as well, but that's a separate piece. But this is the RA402. I don't know if you'll focus on it. I'll put it next to my... but it's a tiny little thing here. But basically, so my understanding with this is that there's a damping that's done at around 13K. Well, it shows damping at 8K, roughly. Or it shows there's less energy at 8K, but the whole point of it is to be more readable higher up for higher frequencies. And I think that's why Gross calls it the new normal. And
that's pretty nice though. Like,
it is nice, but at the same time, it still requires like understanding where all the different like you got to know, like, it might be more readable, but like that also doesn't mean that it's necessarily better, because everybody's used to like the what's the other one? 711. Well, the ears for starters, but also the other, I think there's a 45. I can't remember the name of the other one, but the 711 is the one I'm thinking of.
Which who has that now? Who has
most people.
Most people, yeah.
Most people who are doing well. I think
who has Tile's old rig? Someone else. That was a comment recently. I was reading something. rig apparently, but
RA0045. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Harman research used the RA0045, which has inherent resonance at 13.5 kHz. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. The newer version dampens it, but it's still not accurate because ear anatomy is totally isn't totally understood and totally variable. Exactly. And that also is why you can't just like put a headphone on the thing and measure it and off you go. Like it's you got to make sure that it agrees with how you hear it.
And then you also you have to like there's different ways you put it on the thing and like
Tacony has tile.
Thank you.
Wow,
that's right.
cool.
That's what I saw. Yeah, that's right.
I didn't know they had that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Actually, someone brought that up. Like, so what's right? Like, because I know you just got the measurement rig and everything relatively recently, and you're still putting them together, and then you still have some more pieces you're going to be upgrading and getting to the optimized setup.
Well, right now a lot of it is trying to understand like, where is the value for these graphs and how best do we represent them? Because as I'm going, learning in my videos, like most people who they're doing their research on trying to buy a headphone and they're trying to figure out, or even if they're not just trying to buy a headphone, they want to know about how a headphone is going to sound. They're using the frequency response measurements as a data point, and most people still think that this stuff should measure flat. And that's because they're used to seeing it relative to a flat line, which is using the compensation, and not recognizing that compensation is completely that compensation determines whether or not that is going to sound good. So you could have something like if you use diffuse field, like a traditional diffuse field target as your compensation, and then something measures flat relative to that. If you want bass, that's just not going to be there.
and that's something that people kind of forget too. Like they just like you're saying, like there's depending on which curve you're using to what you're trying to actually measure can really factor in, or even where you're plotting it on that measurement, right? Like, how am I saying this right? Because I'm not, like I said, I'm not the most measurements focused person, but like depending on how you're showing the plotting, like in relative to the kilohertz and like in the hertz and stuff, like that could factor in, or what
you mean like where you're normalizing it?
Yeah, where you're normalizing it, versus 1 decibel versus 5 decibels
absolutely.
versus like that. There's so much there that can be
and like
unintentionally misrepresenting that
where you take the measurement. So usually I try and do a 1 kHz. But sometimes that doesn't make sense if there's anomaly at 1 kHz, and then it's like, well, this is going to look weird no matter what you do. But then also the scaling factors and all of this, like and smoothing, and people do this to make it look better. But also I understand why you would want to smooth to a certain degree, because if for whatever reason you keep noticing like an imperfection in the measurement that you don't hear, that for whatever reason is there, like I can understand that. And so like I think there's a lot of that goes on, but just trying to get it so that people can understand what the measurement means. That I think is critically important. At least that's as far like so far, just kind of going down this rabbit hole and figuring out like all the different things that go on with this rig. And then trying to communicate that and how. I mean, it's so much better than the ears rig. It's amazing how much of a difference this makes for even just doing EQ and stuff like that, because you can actually EQ this and then run the measurement again and then see how close you get to a given target, right? And then it gets then it makes a certain amount of sense. But learning about this has been it's been amazing, right? And now it's trying to figure out, okay, like how do I best represent this stuff so that people are going to have an easy time understanding what I mean when I'm talking about it. And then also like the way that the graphs themselves are represented. So like one of the styles that I like for this is the way that Kryn is planning on doing it. Or he's shown a few of his, and it's very similar to the way that Tile was doing it in the past, where he'd show the compensated measurement using a given target.
Gotcha.
Which is a custom target that I gave him actually. It's the one that's the 900 hertz neutral target, which I think there's good reasons to be using that. But then the other would be the raw graph and show how it goes on the raw graph, so that anybody who wants to also see how that might measure relative to a different target, or understand that this is using a specific compensation, they'll be able to use that information as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's something like that is probably ideal.
Yeah, like I think the more information you put out, the better, I guess, right? Because then you can
Yeah.
it helps equalize that potential to. Sorry, equalize isn't the right word. It helps alleviate some of the potential questions
Yeah.
that can come up from that having just like one curve, for instance, or just
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which and then someone else is actually mentioning. He keeps asking is like for best neutral studio mastering type stuff. I actually talked to a guy that does mastering up in Canada, Vancouver, actually,
Oh.
on occasion, and he actually just got. He has the headphone. He has the.
Oh yeah, he lives near me
SR1.
actually.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. CPS,
Yeah.
CPS mastered, and I chat with him all the time, and well, all the time. I'm on. We chat every once in a while, but and so we were talking about the SR1A. I was helping him kind of get the fitting for that on his head, and then he was having some issues there, and we were chatting. I got it back. And then he also got the head. I don't know why I'm looking behind me. Anyway,
okay,
so
I'm showing the SR1A on straight.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think that's actually what I was looking at. I was like, looking at the SR1A. But yeah, so like comparatively for Studio Neutral, I think he really likes the headphone because he does have that, and he also has the SR1A. And for mastering reasons, I think he did mention that he is liking the headphone. I can't remember if he had the LCDX or not though. But I think
don't know if I would use the LCDX for that, unless you had like the right Reveal Plus preset or whatever.
Yeah. And that was my take, because I've heard all three of them myself, and not in a mastering or more for like just enjoyment reasons.
Yeah.
And in that, I'd probably put the LCDX in the back in number 3. I'd probably put the headphone in number 2, and then the SR1A in number 1.
Interesting.
But I mean, it's just. But then I don't really consider the SR1A headphones though, so I don't think I would even really put those.
But that might be preferable for the yeah. But
because
see,
I don't know. It depends on the person.
The LCDX is surprisingly good. Like
yes.
for its technical. Like I keep going back and forth with the Aria, and like I think that the LCDX does compete as far as like detail is concerned.
Yes.
Not soundstage and all the rest of that, but like it's just such a weird tuning.
Yeah.
You know, like I hope that, I mean, that was the cool thing. They recently updated Reveal Plus. I haven't played around with the new presets, and I should probably do that while I still have the LCDX here to see, you know, what they changed with that preset, if they did change that preset, because it could use a lot more upper mid-range energy, I think.
Gotcha. Actually, someone else just mentioned too, because it's kind of the hotness lately. I've been noticing. I think I even went off a little bit in Android's Discord about it. But the Australis or Borealis and the
Borealis.
Yeah, and so for those ones, someone's asking how they compare to the ZMF stuff, if they're as good. And I've only listened to them I heard both of them at the December meetup that we did.
Oh, yeah.
And so, Grant, were those prototypes or were those final production? I can't remember.
I'm not sure how different they are. From what I understand, the Borealis, the tuning was final. I don't know about the rest of the
gotcha.
Of the like design, but what
what
was your take on that?
Honestly, I thought they were just a better 650. Honestly, 600, 650. I think they were just they were a much more enjoyable version of the. Not much. That's a tough word to say. I wouldn't say more enjoyable. They were just a more capable, technically sounding than the 650 was.
Yeah. I think they are competitively priced as well.
Yeah. Like I think they're competitively priced for what they're producing. And once again, my snark sometimes comes off as, or my sarcasm humor. I think I joked like, "Oh, which version did you get? The fall aparts or the crumbles, or you know, like."
That's because text is cold, man. It doesn't contain the smile behind it.
Yeah, well, I think I got a bunch of flack for winking in my comments in one of the headphone discords.
Oh.
And so. And I do that because I'm trying to like alleviate some of that awkward, like I'm trying to get my humor across, and I tend to just randomly put winkies everywhere. So like, anyways, like, so with that being said, like, I think within that time frame that I heard them, which I think I listened to each one for about just around 10 minutes, I want to say, just shy, maybe.
So good enough for a full review.
Full review, 10 minutes, all you need in a demo scenario.
Yeah,
live music, people talking. You can do it. Expert ears. So sorry, I'm joking again, sarcastic. But like I think but you can in that scenario you can usually tell if you'll like a headphone for sure in that time
Yeah.
frame. Like you can usually go,
Or if you're interested in more, yeah.
yeah. And to me, I think that they were that. Like I think they were competitively priced at that I think they're $800 or $900.
I from what I understand, they were under 1,000, and I thought
Yeah.
that they could compete with stuff that was over 1,000. That's as far as I wanted to go with my assessment at the time.
Yeah,
It's like I was in the same boat. I was like, okay, the 10 minutes that I got to try them. Actually, so to me, the Borealis sounded like it was tuned similar to a Utopia. I mean, this is also partially because that's what Litchi told me, and I was like, yeah, I could see that tuning being similar, but maybe not quite as technically detailed, as the Utopia.
Yeah.
But I do think it had really good dynamics, and then it did have a fairly natural sound to it, which I liked. So I found that one that was more to my taste of the two.
Yeah,
that's the open back one.
Open back one.
And
Borealis,
then
the Australis is the closed back, I think.
Yeah, the Australian, and to me the Australis just sounded like a better Fostex. Like
that's actually. Yes.
I was like, this is like what I wish that the TRX00 Ebony could have.
Yeah, I could see that. Yes, and so and like for me that was what I was generally my takeaway as well. But I would see my thing. I kind of take umbrage a little bit with the comparison to the Utopia because it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's almost it's inflating its capabilities more than it really is to my mind.
Right. So when I say like it reminded me of the tonality of the Utopia, I mean like it reminded me of that frequency, like tonal balance, I guess, not necessarily the like technical.
The actual technical.
Yeah. But like again, I think it does like compete.
I would compare it more with I don't think it's as good as a Clear even. The Borealis.
That'll be because I have one here and I have a Borealis coming on Monday.
Oh, perfect.
So so I have Rux watching. Yeah, I know he's always worried about what I think, but
definitely isn't worried about what I think. So no worries.
No, but in my opinion, I think they are worth consideration. In that conversation with some of those ZMF headphones, I think if I had to compare the Borealis to one of them, it would be the Auteur. I think that's probably the closest. But I think it'll be an interesting comparison with the Borealis and the Clear because I think that's really more fair. I don't think it's fair to compare the Borealis to the Utopia. The Utopia is like $4,000.
Yeah, it's a $4,000 headphone.
If it's able to be like as good as the Clear, then it's like, whoa, this is like a really good value, right? That's all it needs to do, and then And the Clear is great. Like I've been enjoying it, a lot.
Oh, Clear's fantastic.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the colorway, I would probably like the fact that that's my biggest so my two favorite headphone companies right now are probably ZMF and Focal. I was mentioning that somewhere else too, I think. But like those, I think right now that they just kind of have what they do down to a science to some level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're especially like I think ZMF is just they're just magic. Like I'm a fanboy, so if anybody take that with a grain of salt as much as you want, but I'm definitely a ZMF fanboy, so I will wear that on my sleeve. But I will say that the Focals to me seem to be one of the best, technically and enjoyable listens I've had the pleasure of having on my head. They're just expensive.
Focal headphones to me, every time I listen to a Focal headphone, I think this is really calculated.
Yes.
Clear Utopia, it's very.
It's down to the.
Yeah. But
later on,
it's not like they're free from like even the Focal Clear. I think there's a bit. I think everybody sort of noted this on the Clear that while it's actually it's got a surprisingly excellent frequency response. It's got an excellent frequency response relative to the Harman Hybrid that I put together. Just because I was like, oh, this is what I like, and I measured and I was like, oh, this is very very close. But then the only oddity is there's a little bit of weirdness there around 6K, and then it's funny because I noticed that and I was thinking somebody else said that there was a 6K weirdness of the Focal Clear, meaning there's a peak there, elevation there, and then I realized it was tile. So he noted that, and then I'm thinking, oh, now I know exactly what you're talking about. It's there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
They're
not as
not.
good as the Utopia, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And but I think for general, I think for this kind of like what I think of the AL list, right? Like so when I say like I always say this to people, like for most normal
Yeah.
people that are in this audiophile world, which is a misnomer
Which
because
of us is
who's
normal?
an audiophile that's normal? But like uh, for most normal people, if you were to someone would ask me like, hey, what's the best headphone I can get for just enjoyment and having a great old time, and it would come down to probably the ZMF ALSs would be one I'd recommend, and the Focal Clear.
Mm.
As far as like top of the line, like just one and done. I don't
For
need
me,
to.
it's Otura and Clear.
Fair.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'd also take into account like what's the preference of that person. Like, are they
Right.
listening? What kind of music
Right.
are they generally listening? Even though both are pretty good at across the board genres. Um, and then yeah, actually, honestly, a lot of the ZMFs, like any of the ZMFs in that range, the Auteur and the Atticus, even like a lot of those are actually pretty all fantastic when you actually think about it. It's just I
Mhm.
personally own the Ellis, so like it's easier for me to describe what I'm hearing, and then from my
Right.
experience with dealers, it's just personally my preference for like just the easy listening headphone. Another one, actually, surprisingly, is that I'd recommend for a lot of people for the planar side is I'd actually recommend this one, even though it's a
Yeah.
gamer one.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this thing's
It's not
fantastic.
though. It's a
No, like yeah,
it's like, packaged with that and marketed as that, but I wouldn't say
yeah,
that's
like it's
really like.
this is actually a pretty great audiophile at the price point.
Yeah.
You can even lower it down. Like take some of the gamer stuff out of the package and
Yeah.
bring this down by however much that would be. And like these would
$100 or so.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah, like that. These would be fantastic little.
Yeah, put it in the same price range as the Ananda, and then the
Oh
Ananda, then it's like that is a really competitive. Like I don't
yes,
know who wins there. I mean, they're both excellent. Um,
yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
so it's like that kind of thing. I'd recommend. That's how I that kind of like that. There's like that normal, like I call it like the normal audiophile, like top of the line, and then you
yeah,
get us crazies that are way into it, spending ridiculous money on
yeah. Speaking of which, somebody asked about the Abyss Diana Phi. So I do have one of the community members there from Discord sent me the Borealis, and he's also sending me a Diana Phi with the DMS mod. So that should be interesting. The it's gonna be a bit weird though because to measure the Diana Phi, because that's not really supposed to fit on your head like a normal headphone
yeah,
would.
it had, like really fine
It's really
adjustments,
weird,
right?
yeah. So it'll be tricky to measure that one. But this I can't remember who it was who asked this, but they were asking whether or not I took the Diana Phi review down, because I did a Diana Phi review before, and I did take it down for a few reasons. But one of them was there are so many question marks around that unit specifically and
Mm.
where it came from, and I have a certain hunch, but there's just too much weirdness around that, and that's just I figured it's probably worth doing a completely new review of the Diana 5 with a new unit, um, that I get either directly from someone who bought it recently or from Abyss directly, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but yeah, I'd rather if it's not something that I felt like would be indicative of the person who is buying that headphone, if it's not indicative of their experience, then I don't
Then
think it's really fair to keep up. And I thought with that one that they're on a different revision now. They got different pads out now. There's the DMS mod. Like
there's
it's
too many deviations for it to
yeah,
be an
exactly.
accurate representation
It's
of what's actually on the market, kind of.
exactly. So it's not a fair indication of what the purchasing. If you bought one now, it's not
It
what
would
it'd
be
be
the
like
same. Yeah.
now.
And actually, that's actually interesting because Martin actually just said something too. Everyone's talking about comfort and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But real quick, Chet Sandberg, Elex versus Clear. Clear is better than Elex technically, and I think tonally better to me personally.
Yes.
Elex is very capable, but Clear is a definitive
Yep.
is a clear winner.
But the Alexa is a good value.
Fantastic, great value.
Yeah.
And then Empyrion, real quick. Have you heard the Empyrion?
I have.
I'm not a fan. Like I had it for a couple weeks, and it was hard for me to write up I don't think I even reviewed it, did a proper review because I didn't. So here's something from my perspective is people always laugh like, oh, you never give bad reviews. And I'm like, well, I just don't want to waste my time writing and listening to something.
That's the key, right? Like, do you want to really spend the week or 2 weeks with something that you don't like?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to waste, like, I don't want to waste, I don't have, like, time is precious, man. It's very finite. It's,
I think it matters if you're like warning somebody, you know, like
yes.
with the HD820, I didn't feel bad about that.
Yeah. Yes. So for instance, like, and if I will, like, so for instance, there's that too. Like, I actually like the HD820, which is shocker. And but it was a week. I had a week with it where I did not like it. Like I had these, like I was just like, these are not that great. Was having a hard time with them. And then I think it was, I want to say how it happened was I think I was listening with my glasses on, and I took my glasses off for a listening session one day, and I was like just sitting here like this, listening to the HD820s, and all of a sudden, like for whatever reason, it just sealed perfectly, and I was like, and it had that aha moment, and I was like, oh, these sound just like the HD800s. And so, and that's when I picked up on it, and that's when I started playing more with the seal. I mean, I think I had a conversation with Torque and some other people about that, and I still don't think that they are the valuable. Like I think even at the end of my review, but you can just go buy an HD800 and mod it for $800. So, like the price point was
HD800S or HD820.
820. So the HD820,
the closeback.
So the closeback, like I actually liked it once I got the proper seal and I had it fit properly and all that stuff. But like, it's definitely not priced. It's an over engineered. You're paying for the engineering of that headphone. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the R&D and with that.
Yeah.
And
like that would be one where I would mod it just because like it sounds like there's potential. Like there's clearly detail and the driver is technically capable. It's just that whatever happened with the tuning when they closed off the glass. But the thing is, I understand why they tuned it the way that they did. Like if they and when I did my EQ video on it recently, looking at where the bass level is for that crazy upper bass bump, it has to be there, because if it's not, the 300 hertz dip just kills any body. Yeah. It's because, and that's the thing, like when you're looking at the frequency response, you can't just look at the deviations. You have, and from whatever target curve, you have to look at what's around the deviations to see if it makes sense. Because when there's a deviation that's very specific, it's just cutting something very specific, it's not even cutting it entirely. It's subduing something very specific. And if there's, something might not look like it measures all that well, but it can still sound good if, you know, at least on first listen or whatever. It's not, you're not listening for specifically that dip or anything like that. But yeah, I just found that for the HD820, it was too dramatic. It was too, you know, like that.
It's definitely more like in your
yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, so that's another factor. Like sometimes something might measure. Maybe they did that EQ curve, but that the way they balanced it specifically to hit certain targets that they were looking for, right? Like, so maybe that's something to keep in mind too.
And there's a lot of like lesser of two evils kind of stuff going on with this. I imagine it's like, well, if you don't have the bass boost, you lose any of the body, and it sounds worse than if you did, you know, the other way. So
yeah. And that's something to think. I mean, people need to really take that into account too. Like or just listen, and if you like it, you like it. You don't.
Yeah, use your ears. That's the bottom line. Sorry, we were talking about something else before. The HD820 got in. The Empyrion. The Empyrion.
So I was saying, sorry, I deviate. My ADHD kicks in.
That's okay.
So the Empyrion, like, so I didn't really like that one. It wasn't. It was bad. I just think beautiful headphone. One of the best looking, comfort wise and just built headphones I've ever had the privilege of holding in my hand. But like the way that I think it's the way that they have the driver, the way they have the traces on the
isodynamic whatever. Yeah.
So the way they have it is the bass is up high, because that's the way the drivers, and then the way that if you have it situated like more or less how I think that they want you to have it situated on your head, is that the treble and mids, the way that driver is it's like beaming into your ears with the mids and the,
it sounds like you're listening to two different headphones at the same time.
Yeah. And then the bass comes from up high, which is, it totally throws me off. And I'm just, it just, it was funny because I actually let Ant I got to witness his first impression of it. He kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
It was funny watching his face too. He was like, "Oh, these are super comfortable."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, like, they're so comfortable that I feel like it affects my impressions of them.
Yeah,
Like,
and they look gorgeous too. Like
I didn't want to. Yeah, I kept saying it was more comfortable wearing the Empyrion than not wearing anything at all. But yeah,
they're so
I agree. I agree
and
with the sound assessment there. It's but I found that the treble performance was decent. Like just isolating the individual things. Like the treble, I thought had good detail and it was well balanced, well extended. It was just that the bass was not good.
yeah, bass, and it made me get I remember I was talking about the wall sound factor I get sometimes. I get that more often with planars than I do dynamics. So that might be part of the reason why I'm not a big fan of planars as much.
But
as
I don't think that the Empyrean is like a I don't think of it as a typical planar because it's a very unique with the isodynamic, hybrid array thing. It's almost like combining a planar and a dynamic or something, like because they have the trace, that's,
it has a dynamic style to it. The way
it looks like almost like a there's much more concentration for the mids and treble.
Yes,
right.
And in all truth, and it wasn't overly unenjoyable with. I mean, it's just that for me, I just didn't think it was that, especially for the price point. Like,
that was the thing. I couldn't get over the price. I thought
another one
like
of those.
there are headphones that are half the price that perform as well.
Yes. And so once again you're paying for a comfort and design of a thing rather than the proper
exactly.
quality of the
which does go for it counts for a lot. If like for me, I'm always on the lookout for. I think less so these days because I'm constantly switching headphones and reviewing different things, but when I started out doing this stuff, I was always looking for the best headphones for work, right? And I'd be working for 8 hours a day, and I'd wear headphones for 8 hours a day or longer, right? 10 hours, whatever. And so I would want something to be comfortable for that amount of time, and I'd be willing to pay more for that.
Enjoyable, comfortable, and enjoy. It's funny, and I think I'm not sure if you fully agree with me, but I think you'll be on the same page. That was the Elysia for me. That's what I did. I did that same thing. I used the Elysia like 6+ hours a day when we actually were going into work and stuff, and like that was my I would listen to that like religiously, like at work, and it had enough of a. You could turn down the volume enough, still get a good quality sound out of it.
Yeah.
But then not be distracted by the music too. Like it was.
Yeah. It was actually one of the perfect work headphones because I even put that on my article. Like it also looks good. Like it doesn't look out of place.
Yeah.
For all of the ridiculous designs that we have in like the headphone world, or like imagine taking an SR1A to work. Like it'd be amazing. But yeah. That would be more distracting than anything else.
But even these, I would I took these to work a couple times when I did, or even the demo monkey pods that I had. From Zach, and people were like, "The hell is this guy wearing?"
But then at least there's those ones, they look the ZMF ones, they look like classy in a kind of like a handcrafted
way, and they're good looking headphones, but it was more just because they're so different than what Beats or like most people would be wearing in an office space. So it's more like it wasn't more like what the heck you're wearing, it's more like what is that? And I'd end up being like this, like what
curiosity and intrigue.
Yeah
Man, I still need to get a Verite closed at some point. That would be my, because I love these so much, right? And I'm just thinking, man, I need the closed.
they're I also have a bias because these are, they're special for me and stuff like.
Right.
But I think that, I find the Verite. I think the closed, and I don't think I'm alone. There's a couple other people who mentioned how these are just to them just have a little bit more enjoyment out of them, or not. Enjoyment's the wrong word. They have a different capabilities than the Verite opens, but it's small enough to where it's not as big of a factor if you're deciding on a headphone. But if you are like us and you want that last little squeezing,
of course, right?
Then
and also for me, it being closed is a big deal. Like, and the opens are they're like mostly open. They're not like as wide open as like the Aria
is from far away.
Yeah, but and well, for me, it's like a computer fan noise gets to me, and like if I'm rendering something, it spins up, and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, my computer's loud as hell too, and I need
Yeah,
to.
yeah. I need to get some water cooling in there or something. I don't know.
Well, I have water cooling in mine right now, and it's still loud as all get out.
Yeah.
I think I just need to replace the. I think the fans are just getting old.
Yeah,
I think I've mentioned
also,
this when we're doing the game stream. I actually have a bunch of parts coming in. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah. I need to do that. I need to do an upgrade at some point. Like I'm still rocking an 8700K and a 1080 Ti, and it's like nothing really better has come out. Or significantly better has come out. So I'm thinking maybe the AMD stuff is probably the way to go for rendering.
But, yes, I think that is, especially the one that's supposed to come out this fall. I think that'll be a good
that's
one.
what I heard. So I'm gonna hold off until then and maybe get that one once it comes out, and then see if I can get a GPU upgrade that's quieter.
Yeah,
1080 Ti is pretty loud.
Yeah, I think that's the other one's my 1080 Ti. I have a 1080 Ti Founders Edition. Yeah, it's pretty loud. I was looking at the AMDs, but then I'm just being impatient, and I feel like I got a good deal on a 10700K i7.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, screw it, I'll just do that, and then go from there. And then if I need to, I can always build another computer later on down the road.
It's always fun to do. I love building computers.
That is, it's one of my favorite things to do too.
Yeah.
It's always funny that I always, because I used to go so far between builds that I'm always like, I get all the stuff and I'm like, oh, what do I do? Wait, and then I get into it. It's like comes back.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's fun. I got a question here from Musics. We can find lots of information about headphones, but DAC/amp information is really lacking. Which camp you guys are on? Metal 571 and the Headphone Show. Objective versus subjective. So
I'd probably be more the subjective guy, I think.
Yeah. So like, I think it really matters what you're trying to do. If you're trying to achieve like perfect transparency, like the best measuring stuff, then be in the objectivist camp and then go get a Magni Heresy or whatever.
Or if you have the money, Army 80i2 DAC or
topping topping an A90 and D90. Get that stack and that's fine. But if you like the idea of unique transformer design, like what Lake people are doing, or like what like the Rupert Neve stuff, actually the Rupert Neve stuff's really low output impedance as well, so that's also something to keep in mind. But there's transformer designs that don't necessarily measure all that well, but they're done in a very specific way that can sound good, and that just like shifts the question of what you're trying to achieve with your DACs and your amps. Do you like, and I think it's an important one, because it's like, do you want to give your headphones a flavor? Do you care about that? Or would you rather it be just the headphones that you're listening to and nothing else? And in that sense, I think if you can figure that out a little bit, if you can say, I'm on one side or the other, then it kind of solves the purchase chain a little bit.
Yes. It's funny, actually, when you think about it this way too, if you're an objectivist, it's not as expensive of a hobby. But when you start going into stuff, it's like that's when you start getting into the tubes. You start getting into the romantic stuff. And you've actually experienced this. Like once you go tube, it's really hard to go back for enjoyment reasons. Like,
it makes me want a pendant. Like, so this is an interesting like conundrum that I have for myself here. I could get myself a Verite closed, because that's like a dream. It's expensive, but it's a dream headphone, right? Mm-hmm. And I love closed back. I care about sound isolating and all that stuff, and so that's like one of the things that I might want to do. And then if I did that, I'd be like, I'd have to get a ZMF pendant as well, because you gotta have it on good tube amp, right? Yeah. And then that gets even more expensive. And then if I look at like the price of what that ends up being, you could get a Susavara for that, like,
or a really nice camera.
Or exactly, you could get a Canon R5 when that comes out.
Yeah.
So like it's
next week. Announcements.
Yeah. I'm excited for that, but really, like, it's a tough question, and ZMF Verite and the pendant, it makes it that much more difficult. Like technically, I think the Susvara is the more like detailed and more let's say technically capable sounding headphone, but at the same time, like the Verite on tubes is it's an end game in its own. Like it's an end game kind of setup that I don't think anybody would be disappointed by. So tough choice.
I think. Well, I'm unmuting. I'm muting. Sorry. So I've yet to hear Susvara. I've heard it at Can Jam. And I think I heard it at one of the local meets too. Was that Susvara? Yeah. And then I also heard it up at the Headphone Bar in Vancouver.
Oh,
and
I didn't even know he had a Susvara.
Did he have maybe it was no. That was a Heck. That was a Heck SC.
Okay.
1000.
Yeah.
Sorry. My bad. So yeah. So I never really. I always say I never hear one, or I've never heard one. But that's just because I don't take that hearing of it as
it doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so with that being said, like from my experience with the Susvara, yeah, and even the Hex, and they're just, I think it's like that the speed factor really comes into play, and I'd like to get a Susvara in for just so I can better understand like what you guys are talking about. I think I was talking to Dex. We might swap headphones at some point.
Yeah.
To try and so I can hear what this Susvara love is. But like for me,
I don't know if you like it as much.
Yeah, and I just because I know my preference that I and something actually kind of leads into my other thing I was going to say is like we were talking. I think it was in the SR1A thread where people were like, "Oh, I can't believe you wouldn't like." And it's like, well, some people are just not gonna like something. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
it's like, and it's not. So that's something to take into account too. Is like sometimes people are just not gonna like something that you like. That doesn't mean that they're wrong. Yeah. It doesn't mean that there's anything.
Well, I thought that was kind of funny because I mean, I get why that was necessary, but I mean, I read the post that I had above, which actually said I did like it. Like, It wasn't that I didn't like it. I did like it. I just didn't. I was surprised by certain things that I think my expectations were a bit different. That's all.
Yeah, and sorry, and so my comment was not actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. Like I wasn't. So that's. It was more just in like a generalized. And so that's another part that I have a trouble with sometimes when I'm writing texts. Is like some people might think I'm actually aiming it at them, but it's more like I usually try to be as general as possible when I'm talking.
Yeah.
So sorry if that was me. If you thought I was directing that at you, I was
no,
not.
I was not. I thought you were coming to my defense.
Yeah.
I meant more the other guy. I can't remember what he said, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was in some. Yes, it was also in your defense, but in a generalized term, like like hey, like look, like not everyone is gonna love the same things that you love, like not you specifically, but I mean in a general sense, like I like ZMF doesn't mean that everyone else has to like ZMF to the level that I like it, like like there's those factors too, and I'm a very half full kind of person. I'm an optimist most of the time, and so that comes into play too. Like it's hard for me to like when I look at something, I'll hear like if I hear a flaw, I'll say that might not be for me. Right, but somebody else, I'll say, oh, that might be, but someone else might enjoy that factor.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's
just like tough. I'm not bothered by the Susvara's slight 7K emphasis, but I know some people are, right? So that's
exactly. And so like I think that's something else that people, it kind of goes back to that whole like the measurements to reviewing to subjective versus objective. It's like sometimes you guys realize that we're all unique individual snowflakes in a blizzard. And so
in a blizzard.
So like it's it's we all have our uniqueness, but it's you have to take that into account sometimes. But anyways, I was someone else had another question and I wanted to
I've been slacking on the questions here.
Let's see here. I saw it earlier. Oh, they were asking about like a good neutral closeback for mastering, and I was like, I don't think there's really a great closeback mastering headphone, right? Like
this gets to an important question, and I don't know the answer to this, but
I'm not
actually well, it's something that I would almost want to ask DMS about because I know he did do some work in recording studios, and I think he might have a different answer from Metal 571, but. I think one of the recommendations for that is probably the AKG K371, because that's fairly close to a Harman target. I think it's probably closer to the 2018 target. I don't know why that would go back to the 2013. But I think the counterpoint to this is: do mastering engineers, when they're using headphones, do they want something that is consumer preference tuned, or do they want something that's going to reveal flaws? And so to that point, it might be that they would rather use something that's a bit more peaky.
And that was yes.
Some Bayer dynamic. I don't know.
Yeah. And and because I was asking some of the people I know that do more for fun mastering, and then I think and CPS mastering and some other folks too, and also just by watching like certain documentaries and stuff. If you watch the engineers while they're mastering tracks, look at the headphones they're wearing. They're usually like Sony's of some sort, closed back. They're usually a Bayer dynamic.
Yeah, but that also could be because they don't know what good headphones actually are.
There's also that factor too. But I did ask. Someone did say, and someone brought that up actually though, where they were like, "I want to be able to hear the flaws so I can correct the flaws." Yeah, and that was something I that's like sticking in my head. Is I remember a couple different people that do that. Mentioned that a couple times where it's like they want to hear the flaws. They're not listening for enjoyment. They're listening for the flaws so they can correct the flaws. Right. So that would be something to think about. So maybe a peaky, like, but with that though too, like how much does that then factor into mastering too, like on another level?
So I would always think that maybe they'd need two headphones, one for flaw identification, and that could be like a DT 1990 or something, and then one for like reference, as in like this is what it's going to sound like for consumer preference tuned headphones, right? Because like even headphones that don't, like, say they don't perfectly match the Harman target, there's a general, like the ones that people end up liking, right? They are generally trying to do something like that, and they're trying to hit some sort of preference target. So having a reference for what most people are going to want to hear it on is probably a good thing.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
And actually, that'd be a fun thing to do. Like, maybe I'll ask some of the people I know. This, and you can appreciate this. Like, it'd be interesting to see, because I know CPS Mastering has a bunch of top total headphones. I wonder it'd be fun for him to do an experiment. I don't know if he watches this or not, but I'll ping him later. But like, I'll see if he would be willing to master the same track with the different headphones and see what it sounds like on the back end.
Oh yeah, what you end up with. Yeah.
What's the difference? Like, yeah, that'd be a cool. I mean, I'm sure people have done it. They have to have done something like this, right?
It'd be a cool experiment. Yeah, actually, it makes me think of what. So like, the whole the question of sound demos, and like I see this all the time when people are asking like, is it possible to gain any information from sound demos? And it's like, well, no, you can't do that because the compounding is ridiculous.
Yeah,
but
there's too many factors in that.
But I think there's probably a cool way to demonstrate why you can't do it. And I think I can. I've been thinking about this, and I might do something like this where I use the Gross 43AG to do a recording of a headphone relative to another headphone's target curve, and then show the deviations that the recorded headphone has relative to that other headphone's target. So assuming that an HD 600 or whatever is your flat target, right? And then show what a measurement would look like relative to that target. I think that's doable.
It'd be fun.
It wouldn't give you a experiment. Yeah. I think what people like about the sound demos is that it's a recording. This is just tying back into what you were talking about. Is that it's a recording that is easy to understand, right? It's easy to it's a demonstration. The problem is that the demonstration is flawed.
Extremely flawed. Yeah.
But I can understand the appeal, and that's why I've always wanted to try and make that happen. It's just talking to Oratory, it doesn't sound like it's doable unless you give a person. Yeah, unless you give the person who's listening the kind of microphones that would be necessary. But yeah.
Ooh, and someone actually made a good point too. Speaking on that too, like maybe this is what it is. Maybe when mastering tracks, people are using like the those Bears or the Sonys or the what have you. But they also do have near field speakers usually right there on their consoles. So I wonder, and then those speakers usually are tuned more to a natural curve, from my understanding, because that way they can actually then make sure that they're not over dark, like you mentioned, like they're not adding too much low end, or they're not like that way. So I wonder if that's more of how they're tuning it. But then they're that probably kind of using
I think it would probably be better to do mastering with good speakers than headphones, because you got to do studio positioning for the images and all that. Like yeah, you don't want to be stuck with it. But actually, talking to I can't remember his last name. His first name is Brendan or Brandon. The guy I met in he's a
for the when you're at the
in
Can
New
Jam.
York, yeah. Well, we went to the recording studio afterwards, and I was talking to him. I can't remember, but he was the engineer for some modern pop artists that I was embarrassed to not to say I didn't know who they were, but they were
Cool.
popular. I was like, yeah, I don't know who that, um, but no, he was telling me how his reference is actually the HD 650,
That makes sense.
and so he was comparing that with the headphone because we brought the headphone with us. It's here somewhere. The headphone, and so he was comparing between the two, and he said actually the headphone is something that he could use for his mixing because it does have the lateral definition that you would need compared to the HD 650, which is like, yeah, that makes a certain amount of sense. So it might, as much as speakers are still the thing that you'd need for proper mixing and mastering, I think there's starting to be,
Well, that's what I mean.
the distance is being closed a little bit.
When you look at what these are, well, sorry, let me hide the face.
Yeah.
So that's what these were intended for. These weren't actually intended, from my understanding, for audiophiles.
But it's funny because they did get, like, if you look at the measurements that I posted of those you have to take that with a huge grain of salt because it's like, how you position it and how open or closed the flaps are is going to be, it's going to change
factor.
the whole thing. But when I measured it to like where the positioning and the flaps were ideal for me, like I actually this is going to sound super nerdy, but like I actually used the measuring tape to measure the distance of the SR1A from my ear, and then I measured it on the rig how far away it was there as well, and that's how I got to the curve I ended up with. Yeah, but what I found is it's surprising how close the upper mids and treble are to the consumer preference curve. Like I was thinking it would be, super, wonky because I heard the MySphere before, which was really mid-elevated. There's like a mid-range shout, but the SR1A it's a really enjoyable sound. Like, lacks a bit of bass, but.
And well, actually, that's funny. I think I noticed it with mine too. Like the bass elevation after. I know this is going to be a whole other controversy, I know, but like the burn-in factor, right? So after a while of breaking in the ribbons, I noticed with them, like maybe it's just brain burn-in too. I mean, that's a thing. But like over time, actually the bass, maybe it's just like that. Maybe it's just brain burn-in, my brain acclimating to the signature.
Just sort of on that subject, I mean, you're talking about the SR1A, which is not like any other headphone ever. So if it were to have burn-in, nobody should really be pointing at that and being like, it doesn't have burn-in, because who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, and it's crazy because like the flex. I was reading the SR1A thread over on Headphone, and the engineer's in there for that in that thread, and so he talks about it too. And then the way that the driver flexes is crazy. It actually flexes more at the endpoints than it does in the middle, for my understanding.
Right. Okay.
I think cool. I think. I mean, I was just reading but anyways, like, so it's just interesting how it's just a crazy thing. Okay? Like I said, I wanted to call it a headphone. I would say it's like I joke, it's the near field speakers that go on your head. So like near field speakers. But like it's, and I did notice the bass elevation came up, or the bass naturally, as I listened to it over like, I don't know how many I didn't really pay attention to the time frame, but it did get better. And even Torx, I listened to his, and his were definitely, he even mentioned it. He initially had a boost in the I can't remember which range it was, but he did boost the lows. I think it was like a couple decibels to get it to his preference. But then over time, he actually didn't. It became too elevated, and he actually brought it down into the natural. Yeah, and now he doesn't even boost it anymore at all. Like from my understanding. So like that's insane.
I did boost it on here. I found that it was like, I added a bass shelf for these, but like a little bit. But these are it's a weird concept. And to me, I'm trying to figure out where the advantages of this design, because it's not the ribbon necessarily, but the fact that it's not coupled to your head. Like there isn't any coupling. You know how like these like normal headphones, like there's your ear goes inside of a thing, an enclosure, whereas with this there's none of that. And actually, somebody was talking about crossfeed earlier in the chat. I think with the SR1A, maybe this is just like my mind playing tricks on me, but I could feel almost like I could hear the other side of the of the ear speaker from the one side.
You probably can, because I mean, when you think
Yeah.
about it, I mean, it's probably reflecting back at you in some way, depending on.
Yeah.
Someone else brought that up too. Is like what's behind you while you're listening with the SR1As will probably factor to some degree for reflection. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that's one of the things that maybe contributes to, like, it doesn't sound like like a planar has really good separation qualities and all this. This sounds more like a speaker in that sense, in the opposite sense, because I mean, I always like think that's the difference between headphones and speakers. It's like you're in the bubble with sound around you with headphones, whereas the speakers, they're in front of you, giving you everything is interacting with everything else before it hits you. Well, not everything, but there's more interaction going on before it hits you. And with SR1A, I get more of that. I get more of the interaction. And I was thinking maybe it's because there is no ear coupling. Maybe it's because it's literally sound is going to both sides from both sides. So something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that you kind of, I think you're right. Like it's more like that speaker experience. And so and this, I think a bunch of people do this actually, but some people actually pair like a small subwoofer, like an actual speaker subwoofer in the room with the SR1A when they listen. So that's something another thing that's kind of interesting that I've been
with
seeing.
With the subwoofer?
Yeah, like some people actually have a subwoofer paired to it, so they'll run the subwoofer line from the because with the SR1A, if you guys didn't know, that you're supposed to have like basically you're using speaker amps for a lot of it, and so a lot of the interfaces have or they'll figure out a way to basically bring in a speaker or a subwoofer into it, and they'll use a subwoofer as a room, just to kind of bring it that bass elevation too. So that's been kind of interesting.
I could see that.
Thought. Yeah,
that would work.
Be interesting. Maybe just get one of those. Maybe get one of those chair thumper things. You know what I'm talking about, like a little gamer.
Oh yeah, yeah. But see, like my take on the SR1A right now, which I still need to put more time into it. But I think I put this in the post that the mids and treble, the detail is like upper mids and treble, like the detail is phenomenal, and it definitely is competitive at wherever its price is. Like it's up there with other flagship headphones, I think. Where I was a little bit not as excited was the lack of dynamics, I thought, and it was in a way where it kind of made me think like maybe this is because I'm used to the headphone type of presentation and not this kind of, because it really is like having two near field monitors like right there.
Yeah,
and so it just was a different type of experience that I didn't really feel like I still don't really feel like I can understand, the advantage of it yet. So I'll probably need to spend a bit more time with it to make sense of it.
And yeah, and it's, I think, I don't know. I think it just also comes, like you said, it's just you maybe take some more time with it, but it's also like what I was saying before too. Like sometimes it's just not a thing that you're gonna like at the end of the day.
Well, but that's
not that you don't like it, but like that there's things that you're just gonna have. Sorry. Clarification.
I do like it. Yeah, I do. And I do think it's worth, that's the thing, is like, if you're into upper mids and treble, it's a little bit like the head audio headphone, right? There are certain aspects of that where it's clearly excellent. And I think the same is true for the SR1A. There are certain parts of it where it's like, this is nuts. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And for me, like I should probably figure out where that's priced at. Like because you gotta buy it with the system, right? So
so as far as the headphone, the SR1A by itself with the interface is $3,500, I believe, and then you have to factor in a decent speaker amp or the Jotunheim R. Jotunheim R is probably the cheapest, and my experience so far, one of the better experiences. It's not quite as good as I have dual Vidar mono, so I have two shit Vidars in mono for it as well, and that one is technically better in the sense that it has better technicality. You get a little bit more out of it, but the Jotunheim R is kind of like that diminishing returns factor. Jotunheim R is just way easier to deal with, looks better, and sounds fantastic, like as far as comparison wise. I have heard the SPL 800 is a is one of the better ones, and then also Raw just came out with the HSA one, which
Right.
is the dedicated to it, which of course would be, it's like kind of like pairing the focals with the arch, like
Yeah.
they're just going to be, it's the synergies built into it. So,
Right.
but that's
Right.
that's another $3,500 amp, I want to say. So like
Oh
you're
wow.
talking,
Okay, so you can scale
yeah,
it like pretty high if you want
yeah,
to.
like so like, and then people have been,
Yeah.
I see on the thread, people are pairing it with like $10,000 to $15,000 speaker amps, and you're like,
Yeah.
holy Jiminy, like,
Yeah. But see, like that's the thing is like I almost feel like I made a mistake listening to the MySphere first
oh yeah,
because the MySphere was not on the same level as this, like
hmm
not even close, like and and uh, and that made me really think like, okay, you got to wear it on your head and it's like this weird,
the MySphere is
like
weird, like you have to do this like weird,
yeah,
like,
yeah, it's like this sort of like headphone tiara thing that you gotta have going on, and it's heavy too. It's not particularly comfortable. And I thought to
like,
myself like yeah, I was like, okay, like I can understand that, yeah, sure, there's good soundstage maybe, but
mhm.
I don't understand where the advantage is with this. Like, why would you get this over pick another thing that's worth $3,000 or whatever it was,
And the
right?
MySphere is just as expensive as just the headphones as the SR1A. Granted, you
Yeah,
don't have to pay for
for sure, yeah.
the
But
amps, but
that kind of it like influenced my take on these sort of unique kind of designs that are non-traditional in terms of the way that, like, for example, the no ear coupling, right?
mhm.
Because the MySphere is like that as well, where it's like little speakers that are there,
Yeah, yeah.
right? There's
They're
no
just
ear
beaming
coupling.
into your ear, like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
And with that concept, it made me think, why would anybody choose this over similarly priced headphones? Because it wasn't there. And then I heard the SR1, I was like, okay, I can see it now. It's starting to get there.
hmm
um
and I would say as an enthusiast, the SR1A would be, if you can't have really expensive speakers because you're living in an
yeah,
apartment, a condo, or you have
yeah,
kids. You
yeah.
don't want them to be in. I mean, because it's still loud. You can still hear it from whatever, but it's not as loud as if you were to have like a legit.
It doesn't shake the walls, it doesn't. Yeah.
But you could still get that general enjoyment from like what you would, from my
Yeah,
understanding
it's
of a quality speaker system.
mhm.
And so I think that's part of it too, like that piece of it, as far as an enthusiast level,
Yeah.
which these are definitively enthusiast headphones. Like I would not. It's like,
Just not just casually,
yeah,
go
like
out.
even a normal audiophile, consider these normal audio.
No, no.
Like these are like, you really are looking for a specific thing. Like you're looking for a speaker
Yeah,
situation, but you don't want it to be a speaker loudness, and you want to be able to, then that would
yeah,
be what I would point to that.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
um,
So they're talking in the chat, Verite versus Empyrion. I think we can both agree that
Verite.
Verite, yeah, Verite
Yeah.
would be the way to go on that one. And the
Uh,
Verite is comfortable too. That's the
yeah.
thing. Like,
Oh man. And then you
especially
throw
with
something
the,
like these on
yeah,
there, or
yeah.
like I have the.
Like the
Oh,
Empyrean is definitely comfortable. That's like the
oh yeah.
comfort king.
Yes.
But
That is
but if
definitely
you're
the
looking for comfort, the Verite is still comfortable. So, oh yeah, yeah.
I have my super cushy boys here that if people like, these are like literal pillows. I can do the same thing with my the Verites, but you put the velour suede pilot pad on there
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
with the suede, and these are like, it's like putting a pillow on your head. So ridiculous.
yeah.
And they're heavy, but with that, they adds extra cushion, extra, it's wide.
Yeah, the
So,
the having it be wide really helps. So yeah, people are asking, can we talk about IEMs as well? Yes, we can talk about IEMs.
yes.
For IEMs, Blessing 2, that is IEMs have been figured out. No, I shouldn't say that. It's not like, it's really
Yeah.
really good for the price, but you can I actually have here somewhere the Campfire Ara.
All right.
Um,
Oh yeah, how's
and
that?
it's really good. So like the technical performance is definitely better than something like the Blessing 2. In fact, I think that the Ara is, I'll probably do like a review or like impressions video on it, but I think it's a straightforward upgrade over the Andromeda if you liked the Andromeda off of a somewhat high output impedance source, so like a 2.5 ohm output impedance source, because the Andromeda has more bass. I place it, it's like, yeah, the most straightforward upgrade as far as like technicalities, and then it's also got better treble balance. So the other thing that I was really impressed with the Ara by, was the soundstage was remarkably good. And like and the detail just seemed better than the Andromeda. And then also the bass, in spite of the fact that there's no dynamic driver in there and the bass is lower than that of the Andromeda, like there's not as much bass. It has better dynamics.
Huh,
so yeah, and I think it's because they did something similar to what you know how like 64 Audio has the U12T, and they just dedicate a ton of different drivers there for the bass, and it's got good dynamics in spite of the fact that it doesn't have a dynamic driver for bass frequencies. Is that the U12T?
No, so I had the U12T and then Torque got the Mest, Unique Melody Mest, and that's what these are. These are the Unique Melody Mest. And so I was actually about to buy the U12T, and on a whim, blind buy off the Torque's recommendation, I ended up grabbing these. And I think these are fantastic. What's unique about these ones is that they have that bone conducting driver. But the thing is, it's actually hitting against the faceplate rather than into like your, and it's more geared towards the mid-range, from my understanding. Not like what you would think, like, oh, it must be a low-end thing, but it's actually a mid-range thing. And Ant just did a review of them too.
I saw that. Yeah,
and I was really looking forward to it because, like, I'm not an IEM guy. I'll straight up say it. I can only wear IEMs for so long before my ears start screaming at me. But I think the U12T though was, if I was to recommend any, it's kind of like my Aeolus recommendation, right? Like the U12T is just so good, so smooth, has great tonal balance. It's fantastic.
I gotta say the Unique Melody Mest is one of the coolest looking IEMs I've ever seen. The photos I've seen of that is just.
And they have this really cool, and they come in blue too, I think.
Yeah, I saw the blue. That's the one that Android posted. Somebody's asking. Said I wanted to get the Blessing 2, but the fit issues scared me. Okay, if the fit issues of the Blessing 2 scare you, but you like the idea of a crazy good value IEM with that kind of tuning, the Dunu DK3001 Pro is excellent. It's what I would buy if I wanted the most easy fitting, comfiest IEM that had a really nice frequency response. That's also a hybrid driver IEM, so like has a dynamic driver for bass. It's not quite as like smooth a frequency response as the Blessing 2, so it's not quite as good in the mids, but it's really close. I find, at least, and still like I would take. Okay, this is going to sound weird, but like I would take the Dunu DK3001 Pro over the OG Andromeda, like the original Andromeda. The only downside with the DK3001 Pro, in my opinion, and I think Anthony correctly pointed it out in his review, that the upper treble, the air region, is just a little subdued there. It doesn't have as much presence as something like the Blessing 2, or like, like that kind of sparkle quality, or like the glisten quality for some. You hear a cymbal crash or something like that, or hi-hat. Yes. So that's the only area of the DK3001 Pro where I would say, it's maybe not quite as nice as I would want, but it's so easy to like. And then it's a way smaller IEM with really good fit. So definitely look into that. And people are buying like the FH7 from FIO, and I think like why? Why would you get that one over the DK3001 Pro? That's what I don't get. But
I wonder, like, a lot of times too, I think it's just like people just don't know. Like, the IEM world is so oversaturated too that it's like so hard to find a good. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, anytime I see an IEM, I usually will ask Ant, is this where they're?
Ant and Kryn are my go-to IEM guys.
And exactly,
they've got more experience than I do with that stuff. But
it's crazy. There's so much stuff that comes out from there, and which is, I think it's interesting because it's a good thing in the sense that it really drives like the technology rapidly. But it's also a bad thing because then you get so much stuff on the market that you're like, what's good? What's actually, like, But
yeah, so somebody's asking if Ara is better than the Andromeda for soundstage. My initial hunch is yes, but I'll have to compare, because I have I have both of them here. So again, because there's the OG Andromeda and then there's the new one, and the new one adds more mid-range, which kind of has an effect of focusing the soundstage a little bit. So I think compared to the new Andromeda, which in my opinion is still a better tuning than the old one, the Ara I think does have a more spacious presentation. But I should say, like, it's not like that. It's just wider. It's not like HD 800, like where it's just wide.
Yeah, where it's
right?
just,
It's
or even
it's
the
more,
head. The head is like
yeah,
ridiculous
because
wide.
it's all in-head localization, right? So for the in-head localization of the Era, I find it easier to there's more. It feels like there's more space, but that doesn't mean that everything is further away from you, right? It means that like when things are intimate, they sound in your head, but there's the potential for certain things to sound really far away as well. So I was listening to Pink Floyd's The Final Cut, which I think is a criminally underrated album, and there's I mean, it's a weird album for sure, but there's like stuff that gets thrown into the background of the songs. They're just like voices or different things like car sounds or footsteps in the background, and they're placed very like specifically and very like far laterally, and you can hear those really really distinctly and really well on the Era, and also far away from you. But then at the same time that other things are much more intimate and towards you when they're supposed to be. So yeah, I would say so.
On that topic, is there still a weird impedance?
I love that you say that.
I say it, I instantly catch it too. I'm like, oh, dumbass. Like, yeah. Anyways, like, is it still an issue with the new Andromedas? Like, would you still want to grab like an IFI?
I didn't measure it. I didn't check. I should do that.
I think I have mine.
Yeah, I'll find out on that one. My gut instinct is to say that yes, it is still sensitive, but I should double check that actually. 8 ohm impedance. Oh my god,
there's a bill for that.
Yeah, actually, so I'm going to be trying some IEM modding here in a little bit. Kryn suggested that I have the. I'm just going to pull this out from the cables, tangle of cables. I have the A8000 here from Final Audio, and the technical performance of these, with the beryllium driver in here, and same thing with the Duna Luna. It's pretty nuts, but for both of them, I'm not a huge fan of the tonal balance, and so I'm gonna try putting some like either some paper material or some tea bag material. That's what he recommended, over like in between the tip. And,
oh wow.
Yeah, to try and see if I can curb some of the like the 5K hertz peak that's there, like the treble peaks basically. So
that's interesting.
That should
it's interesting
be
that
fun.
you can do that kind of mod, because I know that the 10 Hi-Fi T2, 3, 4, and all the pros have the little
10 Hi-Fi T2 plus. This one.
Yeah, they have like you could put the little blue tack, or they could I spit. Or you could shove the foamy over the top of the port and get the bass back to, or bring the bass elevation up to be more enjoyable or whatnot.
See, like usually you don't want to put stuff in front of the driver because that's going to affect the detail.
It's so close and so
yeah, and for headphones too. But like that's why I know there's people who are like modding their Verite pads. I heard about that. Yeah, to try and get more detail.
And sorry, I'm looking at the YouTube because it's a delay. I saw the YouTube, but yeah, like actually, do I have?
Cutting out the foam or the
so like I actually have the hybrid closed Verite here, but like this material.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly.
This material here.
Yeah. I don't know what that effect would have on the frequency response, but I think they're doing that because they want to get even more, technical performance out of it. But that's one of the concerns that I have with something like the Final Audio 8000. The thing is though, like, so I actually have an EQ profile for the 8000, and it still doesn't like. This is what Metal 571 is talking about. Like, if you're EQing a headphone and it still somehow retains some of those qualities that you didn't like about it, it doesn't want to, make the adjustments that you're making or follow the adjustments that you're making, then there's probably a limit to what you can actually do with it. And I think up until this point, I hadn't fully really come across something like that. And the A8000 is that for me. It's like there are things in this that no matter what I adjust, I can't fix the problem. Right?
And I think I think it kind of comes back to that whole, like, you can only EQ something so far too, right? Like, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. You can be super specific and fine grained with your EQs, but sometimes that's worse.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you actually, yeah, you will make it
So
actually
I
work.
think the trade-off with this is like I'm gonna try modding it with that either like a piece of paper or something, and it might lose a bit of detail, but I think if it helps with the tonal balance, then it's worth the trade-off for IEMs especially, because I'm not EQing stuff with IEMs while I'm walking around. That seems too much.
Yeah.
I can
Well,
see like
and
sitting at a desk with a computer and you have your system there, but
it
not
also
if
depends on
you're.
what you're using to EQ with. Because I mean, if you
Oh yeah,
have,
like you don't
like,
have as much flexibility with a lot of DAPs. You don't have a
yeah,
parametric EQ.
I think let's see. I think the KN one has some pretty decent ones.
I actually
Um,
really like the ES100 for its EQ that they have in here. They have, I think Metal's messed around with this as well, but this one has you can use your phone with your phone as the software on it.
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's got a really good EQ, surprisingly good. But I just wish that the DAC and the amp were better in it. But oh well.
So I think with a lot of the DAPS issues too is like you have to have the FLAC files running. You can't do it with like streaming or like
Oh, in order to get the EQ
yeah,
to yeah, it's a bummer.
which for us
Yeah,
filthy streamers, that's a
yeah,
non-starter.
yeah. Hey man, for see like I'm on the Cobuzz train, man. Like
Oh, Koba's amazing.
it's great. But yeah, ES100 is fantastic. I do hear like if I compare the ES100 to the like iBasso DX220, there's a noticeable difference in terms of resolution or what we call resolution, right? Um, I keep thinking
Uh,
that you're drinking soup.
oh, drinking tea and
Okay.
coffee earlier in my
All right.
Zelda cup.
Oh yeah. Okay.
This is my geek cup.
Oh okay. Great. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like yeah, so I have a giant. Yeah, they usually do coffee in my. I'm a big giant cup fan.
Yeah. You get more surface area there for the.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The flavor profile
Yeah.
as it kind of wafts in.
So it's like there's a reason for wine glasses. There's probably a reason for wide coffee cups.
Yeah, it's anything, man. Like you go into whiskey, like there's specific
Oh yeah.
whiskey glasses for each type of. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
bananas,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Wait, Metal tried running a LCD4 off of the ES100 once. Definitely less detail in Slam. Wow.
Yeah, so I do that every once in a while too. Like I'll purposely like I've plugged these into like my Xbox controller, for instance, to play
Yeah.
Xbox games, or I'll do stuff like that where it's like it's obviously not a good fit just to see. And I mean it's okay. Usually it's like it's yeah, you definitely start losing out on the like, I always call it like the fullness factor, right? Like the more
Yeah.
power you get, the more you can squeeze out of the headphone capabilities and technicalities.
Oh, Anthony says Wavelet on Android lets you do system-wide EQ without root.
Oh,
That
that's
seems useful.
that'd be
I'll have to
useful.
look into that because I've been looking for that for a long time. And there's some that I've found, but they're not parametric. They're like just multi-band, and they don't have enough bands, so I can't. Yeah.
What's like the Hibby? Have you seen the Hibby one where it's like it's like based off of like it's on here.
Yeah,
It's
I
like the
haven't seen
way
that
that
one.
they describe it is hilarious. It's like enjoyment or something like that,
Oh, is it
or
like Opti?
yeah, like the
Everybody in the chat knows Opti
yeah.
from Blonde.
Oh, blonde. Oh,
Yeah.
God, I don't know. I have to find. I haven't used it in a while. Okay, yeah. So it's called the MSEB.
You can wait. You
It's
can
called
import
Cool.
parametric EQ with Wavelet. That's crazy. Wait, what was this one?
This is the MSEB one. So I don't
Oh
know if
yeah,
you
no,
can
you did
see
show
it.
me that one once. Yeah, I remember.
And it
Seeing that.
has and like the description for overall temperature is cool, bright, warm, dark. So you go cool, bright. Bass extension is light or deep. Bass texture, fast or thumpy.
Yeah.
Note thickness, crisp or thick. So it's kind of interesting. So I think they and like so female overtones, detox versus intoxicating. Like so they've broken down the different.
Oh, I love the descriptions. Yeah.
Yeah, like the EQ they've broken it down into
Yeah.
that. Like impulse response is slow, musical to fast, hard, or air is crisp versus soft. Like sibilance is crisp versus soft. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how they basically took that. I think it is based on parametric too, because I think there's about 12 bands there. But yeah, interesting.
Cool. I'm definitely have to check that Wavelet software out though, Anthony.
Yeah.
That's if you can import a parametric EQ profile, that's insane.
That is pretty awesome.
I will do that for sure. Okay, well suddenly the IEM evaluations get far more interesting if that's if that's possible.
You can actually play with, yeah.
Yeah. Or less interesting if that means I'm just EQing everything at the same target.
See, that's why I'm like, so I'm one of the, I guess they call it like a purist, where like I just listening to the headphone or IEM based. I don't really do too much EQ. I do it on occasion, but like it's usually I'll just swap headphones.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I in that EQ video that I did, I think on the LCD, I think it did, on the LCDX, where I talked about reasons not to EQ, and one of them is if you want to have fun with this hobby, right?
Yeah.
There's more. It's worth respecting the fun that you can have when you don't EQ, because whatever the frequency response ends up being, unless you have pad swapping and stuff like that, that's just where you end up, and then it gets more expensive, I guess.
Yes.
But at the same time, like it's part of the fun when you're comparing different things. You're not trying to have it all match the same type of sound. But that's one of the
unless you're metal.
Yeah.
Sorry, he just put a comment in there, and sorry to interrupt. And I want to kind of this. He actually makes a very good point here. At the end of the day, what do you like? Not you, but like you, the community. It's not. It's like you.
And not EQing to specific targets, but what you actually want to listen to.
Yeah, like what do you, like at the end of the day, this is your hobby, like your personal hobby. Like it's each individual's hobby. What you like is what you like. Kind of the same thing with like anything, right? Like just you like a certain type of whiskey or you like a certain type of beer, but everyone's like, oh, that's hot garbage. Why would you drink that? It's like, because I enjoy it. Like, it's the same thing, because I enjoy listening to these.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my, because he made a point, because people will give him crap for equalizing. Well, that's his preference, and screw you if you don't like his preference. That's his preference.
But see, like that's also one of the reasons why I don't like to EQ things all to the same target either, because I think it's worth kind of like keeping in mind the flavor of the headphone, like the type of sound that it has. Like maybe I can improve a few things here and there for my taste and my preference, but I'm not going to try and match the Harman curve for everything.
But that's also part of the fun too, right? Like messing with the EQ to kind of maybe bring it to a different sound profile, or
what can I do with this? Where can I get the how can I get this thing to sound and see which qualities show up when I match whatever preference thing I'm looking for.
Exactly. Like I had play with it, make it your own. That's part of the hard modding, I'd say, just EQ soft modding, as I would call it, right?
Yeah.
Would that make sense? Like, but like you can do like hard modding versus soft modding, like where it's like, am I permanently or not permanently, but like physically messing with it versus digitally messing with it to like make it your own thing. Like that's part of the joy of it.
EQing is like cooking for yourself. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, exactly.
We should probably do a few more questions here and then call it, because
we're getting
2 hours now.
2 hours.
It's just way too easy to keep going for way too long.
Man, that's the problem with streams. I always say let's keep it to 60 minutes, and it's like next thing you know, it's an hour and a half.
Yeah. Someone says Abyss. Nothing from Abyss is cheap. Yeah,
that's true. It's fact.
It's true. Yeah, I will say I heard. Okay, so I heard the the non-DMS Diana Phi at CanJam next to the Diana V2, also non-modded or anything, and DMS told me that they had the same frequency response, that they measured the same, and the Diana Phi was so much better that I thought there's like it's worth the extra $1,000 or however much more it costs. So
sorry, I was referencing Metal was mentioning the Mobius. Team Copper.
Yeah. I got a chrome one here, I think.
Oh, have you seen the purple one?
Oh. No, I've seen pictures. I've seen pictures of it, yeah.
Special edition one.
Someone says Blessing 2 versus Andromeda. Yeah, so I think versus the old Andromeda, Blessing 2. Versus the new one, I don't know. Because, so the thing is, like, even the new Andromeda, the downside is that the bass is not a dynamic driver. So you don't get quite the same kind of natural, what people describe as sort of natural decay for that dynamic driver. It doesn't have as much punch, even though there's more bass elevation on the Andromeda. But at the same time, with the new Andromeda, they added a lot of mid-range back in. So I think it's a tough call. The one area though that I mean, I know a few people who've heard this on the Blessing 2, and I've definitely heard this. But there is a slight splashy treble 6K ish, maybe like 5.5 to 6K quality on the Blessing 2. And I need to get another one in. Actually, I'm probably going to buy a Blessing 2 whenever they are able to get their shipments up and running, because I think there's a supply chain issue there. But and I'm going to measure it again, because I never actually got to measure it on my rig. But yeah, I do feel that there's ever so slightly a bit of a splashy quality there for the sh sounds, and it also shows up with tambourines specifically, and the Andromeda doesn't have that. So while the Blessing 2 is still far and away the most value crazy IEM I've ever heard in my life, and it's a complete game changer, I think, for the IEM world, that everybody else who's making IEMs needs to pay attention to. I still think that it's still, this is the reason why back when I was scoring them, I gave it a 9 out of 10 for its frequency response instead of a 9.5 or a 10. It was that tiny little kind of etch to the sh sounds that I thought was maybe not quite all that perfect. And then compared to the Andromeda, the 2020, they cut the treble on that one. I think maybe a little too much, maybe, but I think that's more of a preference thing. But they didn't. Yeah. Like, that's the thing, is like there's a lot of people who really like the Andromeda for its treble, and I found that the Andromeda's treble was just a little too hot to begin with. Especially like around the consonant sounds, like around like 8K, and I just found it was just a tiny little bit too much. And when they cut it with the 2020 version, I thought, yeah, I like it better. So
I need to hear this B2. Everyone, the hype train on it is pretty strong. Not that you're hyping it, but like
no, I'm hyping it, man. Full.
You know what I mean?
But see, this one it's one where it's deserving of the hype, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's able to compete or beat IEMs that cost in the thousands, which I think it does, then it only costs what, like $320 or something ridiculous. It's like, yeah, of course that is the new benchmark. It's the line in the sand.
And that's what I think with the IEM world is what's for too, is like they come out with all these new technologies so rapidly that there's it's tough to keep track of the ones that are actually really good, like the blonde.
Oh yeah.
Too, like it's and so I want to definitely I'll thanks, Ant. I'll have to snag. Maybe when I have to get this wonderful Con Cube thing to you here soon, but I want to hear it just because it seems like there's enough people that I trust opinions on that have given it such a praise that I want to hear it.
Yeah. IEM's under $1,000. Is it Blessing 2? Yes. So it's Blessing 2 or Dunu DK3001 Pro. These are just my takes. Those two I think are the ones to look at under $1,000. Don't bother with the Zeus 14 from Mass Drop. That thing is not good. I can't think of anything else under $1,000 for an IEM that I would rather pick. Maybe Ant can give some more. Yeah.
I'm not an IEM guy at all. Like IEMs is like, I have the Mest, I have the Andromeda Golds, and I have the DMG, BVP DMGs, the ones Ant recommended like forever and a day ago. I use them as my, I was using them. They're kind of just off to the side now, but I was using them for like gym work when I could go to the gym.
Viento is under $1,000. What? I thought that was way more expensive. The edition Viento, or maybe they have a model of it that's under $1,000. The M9 is the other one to look at. Yeah, but I don't know if this is like new or used. I thought M9 was just over $1,000, but I could be wrong about that. But yeah, apparently Sony M9 is definitely something to pay attention to. Yeah. I can't say I've heard it, and I haven't heard the Viento either.
Yeah, so.
Etymotic, yeah, of course.
125 years ago, they did solve it.
But see, like I would take the Blessing 2 over the Etymotic stuff. But
then you have to deal with.
Yeah, I don't want the ear dildos, man. I'm not okay with that. Yeah. Wait, wow, Viento is actually at under $1,000. That's crazy. Okay, yeah. So that's probably the way to
And then
go.
Ant just did a recent one too, where I think you buy the customs Ant, where they're like ridiculously cheap customs that you can get. What IEM was that? I remember your ranting Raven. They're like a $200-$300 IEM. I'm yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm talking to the chat. Hey,
Yeah.
but yeah, he
That's-
did a he did a review recently of these, and there's universal in
a custom.
a custom model, and the custom model is like $300 or less, and then
that's pretty cheap for
and
custom.
right, for a custom, which that's usually the price just for the custom. Like,
I'm not a
just
huge
the
fan of custom
customization.
IEMs, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
it's the same thing with the Atomotic stuff. I don't like the
like it's
Yeah.
just it's in there. That one,
Yeah,
yes, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's under $200 for a custom. It's bananas. But
the Audio Legacy. I'm lukewarm on that brand. I don't know enough about it yet.
Yeah,
I just know that their over-ear planar was not good. That's all I know.
Who's the guys that just came out with their IEM guys? But they just, it looks like a car wheel.
Oh, that's Moondrop.
Moondrop.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's out yet.
No, I think it was just I think they were showing pictures
Prototype or something.
I think they did another teaser picture of it recently.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I know they got a few in the works. And they're what they're doing is everybody needs to pay attention to that company because they're doing some great stuff. Somebody asked LCD1 versus Sundara. My pick is Sundara, but I think Metal's pick is LCD1. I don't know. What's yours, Tyler?
I've heard only both. I've never heard the new version of the Sundara, so that's something to take into account. And the LCD one I only heard briefly, and I thought it was okay. I mean, it reminded me. I think the LCD one reminded me of the Mobius, to be honest with you. Like, I was like, I literally think I said that. I was like, oh, it's just the Mobius in a non like Bluetooth. It's an open back Mobius is what I described it as, without the technology.
I still can't get over, like, for both the Mobius and the LCD one. Like, for whatever reason I can't get over the in your head kind of soundstage. Like, it's just like with the Mobius, at least you got the little 3D button, right? You can turn on but still, like, all that stuff is pretty weird to me.
Yeah.
The faking of the soundstage kind of thing. It's pretty weird to me.
Trying to think. Oh, and then someone asked ZMF versus Aria versus Headphone, I think.
Oh yeah, that's always a good one. I actually have a headphone here, and I'll be doing a video about the Aria versus the headphone. So, I
would even say maybe I wouldn't really throw a ZMF into that mix. I'd probably throw an HD800 just because they're all very wide soundstagey headphones.
Yeah. For detail and like all the textural stuff and all that stuff, the headphone, at least the one that I reviewed originally, was I would put the headphone ahead of the Aria.
Headphone was pretty fantastic. I think I had the same one. I got it after you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the Aria. So it's weird because like the headphone also does soundstage really well, but it does it like laterally really well and like front left and front right, whereas the Aria is way more like in front and more
the headphone felt like this.
Whereas the Aria is like depth forward,
a little bit more like that.
Yeah, that's how
I haven't heard the Aria. I'm just basing it off what you guys have said.
Yeah.
So
Salt. I've actually been EQing the Aria a little bit just to add a little bass shelf just to see what it can do, and it's a ton of fun when you do add a little bit of bass there. Like I
was messing with Chrono's bass shelf for the
the Ananda.
This thing.
I think he EQs down the bass actually now.
And it was interesting. Like, because it was very minimal. I know some difference, but then I ended up bumping it up, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Actually, it's fun with this one. Instead of EQ, I threw it on based on someone's recommendation. I threw it on. I think it was who was it? Titian, and I threw it on my KN tube amp with these, and it was like, whoa, that was nice. It was like kind of like it adds a little more of the warmth, the bass, mids. It was nice. I was really impressed with that.
Relaxes things a bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that, with the audio headphone is it's a heavy boy.
It has big heavy boy.
So for me, I would pick I personally use the Aria more because it's
who's putting all of us thin necks to shame is Lost 33. Have you been in the Discord at all? I
know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in the Discord in our Discord on the Dex and Tyler's Discord.
Yeah.
And he had a picture of him. He's 71 years old, and he's got the headphone on. And he's just like, oh yeah, I listen to this for like 6 hours a day. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, we've been going for over 2 hours, so we should probably cut it there because I will have to probably upload this as a podcast or something like that. But yeah, thanks to everybody who tuned in and asked questions. We'll have another live stream probably next week. And stay tuned for the videos that are going to be coming out this week. It got pushed around a little bit just because of different days, but there should be. I may actually even release another video today. We'll see if the timing works out. It should be the review of the Dunu Luna, and then for the next live streams, yeah, stay tuned, especially for the one that's going to be on July 30th with Focal. That one is going to be really exciting, or at least I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. I'm actually looking forward to that too.
Definitely. But yeah, nice chatting to Tyler as always, and nice to see everybody in the chat. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.
Thank you guys. Everyone.
I'm just going to